we're doing a discussion about the local elections, which I don't think anyone's really talking about in the media. Labour announced their local election campaign this week, talking about how we've got to send a message to the government about this. So I put a survey out to, we've got 1,500 people replied to the surveys. We emailed, this is the breakdown of the people who replied to the survey. 60% were members of the Labour, are members of the Labour Party, 1% suspended, 5% expelled, 31% have resigned from the Labour Party, and only 3% were never a member. So that's how they are now. This is what the vote was in the last local election. This is what they voted for in the last local election. 83% of people who took the survey voted Labour in the last local election. That of 1,500 people, that's 1,251. Quite a big number of people voted Labour. Now, if you look at where that number is now, it's gone down to 664. So it's halved. What this survey shows is that half the people who voted Labour last time from the mailing list have actually decided they won't vote Labour this time, and the Green vote has gone up quite a bit, as well as other parties. So it looks like Labour's going to struggle in that way. And if you look at the last one, which is will you be campaigning, 22% say yes, which is pretty low considering well, the need to get people out there to spread the word. So I would say this is pretty bad for Labour. They'd have to pick up lots of votes for Lib Dems and Tories to make up for the loss of Labour voters from last time. I'd like to start our discussion on this by talking to Sharon Wyman, who replied to the survey and is a Labour supporter. Well, tell us how you describe yourself, Sandra. You would vote Labour in the local elections, you say, but you're not particularly keen on Starmer, is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely it. I really hate what's going on in the National Party, and I particularly hate the expulsions, suspensions, investigations that are affecting really good socialists, including a lot of my friends. And I am absolutely in sympathy with the views that Pamela has expressed, because I am also at the same time a loyal party member. The points I want to make about local elections is they are just that, they're local elections. If you want to give Starmer a bloody nose, that's not gonna, I mean, he's not going to take any notice of local elections because he's on a course and he's going to stick to it no matter what. I'm lucky in that I live in a city, Leeds, that actually has a good Labour council. I'm not saying it's a very left-wing Labour council, though we have some very good left-wing councillors. But in the current budget, it has managed to improve council housing. It's gone up. The next 5 years, there's a huge increase in the amount of social housing being built. We're on line for getting an improved carbon. Sorry, my words are going. Sorry,
right.
That was some time. But I mean, in terms of green policies, we're doing well, shall we say. There are a whole lot of other policies. There's a budget for years that has been set with the purpose of becoming as anti-austerity as it is possible in the circumstances. And the circumstances are that we've had 90% of the budget cut, because every time we do it and we're successful, they chop some more off. The Tories are gunning for Leeds, and they're gunning in Leeds.
Right.
The point I'd like to make is, even with economic constraints, it's possible for councils to do good work where you haven't, and this is one of the key things about what goes on in Leeds, where you don't have right-wingers spending their time trying to get rid of the left and spending their energy on that. where the energy is directed to supporting the population and the political will is there, there's still a great deal that can be done. And for me, people become the most important thing.
Can I just come in, because just to check something? So are you saying in Leeds there are good councillors who are not right wing?
Yeah, quite.
And are you also, so if you were not, but if you were not in Leeds and the councillors were right wing Labour, would you be supporting?
I doubt I'd be campaigning if I were in Nottingham or Kirklees.
Right. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to move on. But it's a very good point that there are good councillors out there that are worth supporting, and Labour ones as well. So, thank you, Sandra. So I'm just aware I've got to get through quite a few people, and we're running a bit late. Pam Riemann, you applied to the survey, and I'm just wondering if, are you there, Pam?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Pam. So can you tell us what you said in your reply to the survey about the local elections? Because you've been a Labour member for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've always supported. Sorry, I've just been tested as COVID, so my voice is a bit not my normal voice. So, yeah, no, I've been struggling such a lot with the Labour Party. Obviously, I'm from Bromley. It's the most conservative borough you could possibly have. They're all AH, I won't say it, all of them. And my CLP is a very right-wing CLP. We did have, when I was in the Labour Party in Beckenham, it is actually, there were quite a few left wings, but they've all left. And I've just stayed on and stayed on. It was your survey that really thought, this is ridiculous. I cannot go out and campaign. I cannot knock on people's doors and say, you must vote Labour, they're really good, they're going to do this, that and the other, because they're not. You know, and I've sent a resignation letter, not that anybody will look at it, but I'm going to send it to all of the Labour Party cabinet members, because I want someone to read it.
So would you have gone out before, like in 20?
Oh yes.
And helped campaign, yeah.
But
this time it's kind of like, this is just, you can't see the point of it.
No, I just couldn't do it. You know, there's
right.
No way I could stand on a doorstep and say vote for.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to move. Thank you very much for your contribution, Pam, and I hope you have a good weekend. I hope your COVID gets better. It does get better if you keep treating it well. Rest a lot. I haven't been doing enough of that. Rachel Tomlinson, I'd like to speak to. Rachel, now you're standing as a candidate.
Only as a paper candidate.
Well, it's a candidate. Don't give me all that paper stuff. So tell us why we should vote for you.
Well, it's really about voting for you. It's voting for the Labour councillors in my CLP, because we've never ever had representation, because it's just so tight Tory. But I mean, it's Beverley and Holderness CLP anyway, and we've had fraud, we've had bullying, we've got 2.2 million being spent on consultants to restructure everybody's jobs. There's just so much going on. We're also very unproudly of the area where Paul Nicholson, who was the councillor who backed Jeremy Corbyn over the Liverpool terrorist attack with the cow. I wouldn't get in my area anyway, even if I tried, but we can probably take his area. I do support CLP because we're a sort of a mix of everything, but we do support each other. And then I'm next door to Hull, who is looking like they're going to lose their Labour council, because they've only got a majority of one at the moment, and they could lose that one, and that in effect would bring the Lib Dems in. Hull has been a Labour council for a lot of years, apart from for 10 years ago, possibly, when they were a coalition with the Lib Dems. But the Lib Dems don't spend any money, so that they're no good to us at all. So I am phone banking as well for Hull. I can't go knocking on doors and things, but yeah, Rachel was on the picket line for P&O workers last week in Hull. She was, yeah.
So
I also did a.
can I just ask? Sorry, I interrupt you. I'm doing a lot of interrupting. Sorry, it's not.
All right, it's okay.
But it's just a time thing. Do you not want people to come and help you? Because we could try and get people to come and help you in your.
Absolutely, not necessarily me, but even our councillors, that our members that are standing, yeah.
So where's your ward?
And Hull, you say Hull is the main one, because we really need to get on the streets in Hull, because we cannot afford to have a Lib Dem council in Hull.
Right.
We need a Labour council in. We need to keep a Labour council in Hull.
Okay. Well, we'll everyone get up to see Rachel. Put your thing in the chat, Rachel, and we'll try and get as many people to support you and go to Hull with you, Hull and back. Now, I'm going to move on to Bruno, who's in Kensington. Bruno, how are you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hello, everyone.
Now, you're candidate as well. You're standing for Labour in Kensington. Can you tell us why you think people should vote at all, and also why you think people should vote for you or Labour?
Indeed, I'm in the ward of Earl's Court in Kensington, which has the largest contingent of EU people in the UK. I'm French myself. So it's a reminder that us EU people can not only stand as candidates, but we can also vote in the local elections. And that's very, very important. So make sure, if you know any EU citizens in your area, make sure they are registered to vote by contacting their local council. Not only that, it's only the only occasion us EU citizens can have a voice about the way our local taxes are spent. And remember, no taxation without representation. Also remember, it's not Labour who forced EU citizens like myself to apply to stay in our own homes with our friends, our partners, and our children. So if you're dissatisfied with current management, don't get mad, get even, and make sure EU citizens have representations. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Crispin.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I wasn't aware about the EU EU people, EU individuals, EU, I don't know what to say. People from the EU, that's what I mean, being able to vote in local elections. I didn't know that that was the case, that they couldn't do that in national elections. That's very interesting. Paul Franzak, I'm wondering, is Paul Franzak around? Hi, Paul.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
You were keen on the council that you've got, so.
Yes, Sean.
Could you tell us? I mean, the thing is, they might well be a good council, but how would you feel if Starmer makes political traction out of a result where, obviously, you're not mad about Starmer, are you?
No, although anyway, I am aware that Starmer, and even worse, Wes Streeting, will treat it as validation. However, here in Hastings, I do support our local council. I'm very unlikely to vote Labour at the next election unless we have a bottom-up prospective parliamentary candidate. But here we are in Hastings with the Tory MPs all around us, a Conservative Rother District Council, and there's such a lot of value. I know there are some problems sometimes with the way our local council perhaps could be more generous with its information sharing. But I'm absolutely behind the local council for the time being, because, for example, we're a town of sanctuary, which I think the Tories think we're some sort of tax haven, but it's not about that. And we need a Labour council to help safeguard that. Our Labour council does an awful lot for the cultural values of the town in many, many ways. And moreover, Crispin, and perhaps most importantly, I know some of the councillors, Not all of the councillors are the most brilliant councillors that you'd come across, but some of them really work their case books. Some of them are left-wing councillors. I'm sorry that by keeping them in office and hopefully increasing their number, it would seem to validate the central party. But you see, I'm very unlikely to vote Labour at a general election unless it was the right MP down here. And there are all sorts of rebuttals that we need to keep active in Hastings. Rother Tory Council loves to blame its own shortcomings on Hastings Conservative Council, and I could go on about that, potholes, for example. So yeah. I'm just keen on keeping a local team in charge of this town at this time. And goodness knows what might be the situation as and when we come to the next general election. I fear there will be a top-down imposition of a candidate, in which case, count me out. But
okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Paul. Now, I'm going to bring in another Hastings voice, Leah Levain. To be interesting to hear. What do you think about what Paul said, and would you be voting for good Labour councillors in Hastings?
Yes, yes, I'll be voting for my local Labour candidate. We only have one. We only elect half at time, only two. Anyway, blah 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 details. Yeah, I will be. Can I?
And what do you think about the problem of voting for a party that obviously it looked like you're endorsing? It might look like you're endorsing someone else who's got a brill creamed hair with a funny party.
I think it's incredibly difficult, and it is difficult as a, you know, I mean, obviously, many of you know I've been expelled. I was a Labour councillor. I actually stood down last year because I knew this was going to come, and I didn't want the attacks on me to actually be a distraction from the issues that were important to local people, like poverty, you know, terrible poverty we have in this borough. So yes, it is a real dilemma for us. But I just, if I can, just have a couple of minutes. I know you're very busy. Just to say some of my concerns, apart from the national thing. Well, it relates to the national picture, but I'm really unclear about what Labour are standing for. We have some idea about what they're against. We have no vision. We have no, there's a lot of real problems. We know we've lost lots of candidates. Pamela, I mean, a huge loss. I'm a minor loss, you know, compared to the work Pamela's done over so many years. But other people have referred to the horrendous cutbacks that councils had to face, you know, and yet they are supposed to go out. There's few of them who are out. It seems to be most, from what I can see from the Facebook pictures, mostly candidates and councillors, and very, very few other activists. So people complain because people think the council, we're only a district council, and the council could do everything, which of course is nonsense. The level of that sort of political education is really, really limited. So everyone knows about the cuts, but people are a bit fed up with the cuts being an excuse, though it's very, very valid. But it's not the only thing. There are legal constraints, and there are fears, for example, of making some planning decisions in the interests of local people, because we know that the developers will go to court and cost you a lot of money. There are institutional constraints. And then a very clever trick of the Tories is to offer councils such as ours extra money for very specific projects that you usually have to divert attention to bid for. So we've had fairly generous funding for supporting refugees, getting homeless people off the streets, dealing with drug addiction, etc. All of which are things we always wanted to deal with, but it's like extra money, you have to bid for it, it's time limited, your core money doesn't exist. So then the people in the poor estates who don't qualify, don't come under the right areas, go, oh, well, you've got money for those people, those drug addicts. I've worked hard all my life and I get nothing. Well, what point is that? Why Labour favours, you know? And so it becomes a divisive tactic. And these are really complicated things to get over the doorstep, particularly when no one's going on knocking on the doorstep other than candidates who are constrained by the situation they're in, and then added to the constraints of the National Labour Party and the fear. I mean, I know candidates, it's not yet my place to say, I know candidates who've been expelled in the last couple of weeks. So Labour are frantically having to find new candidates. That's how little they care. In winnable seats, that's how little they care about actually Labour really winning good, hardworking campaigners. So people are then trying to toe the line because don't put your head on the block. It's another version of not fighting for understandable reasons, because almost any Labour council is better than almost any Tory council. Even the right-wing ones have to give some sort of nod. And we have a good left wing, as Paul has said, lots of very good people. I think we're one of only 2 councils in the country that still has 100% council tax relief for people on benefits. Lots of good things. But my God, the odds are really against people making any changes by being in councils, particularly small ones like Hastings. I feel really upset and passionate about it. And I think I've taken up enough of your time.
No, but your time has kind of come up, but it was good to hear you. And it is a complex issue because, you know, like you say, councils don't often have much power. The funding's been taken away. Labour councillors there are great Labour councillors, but they're fighting a hard battle.
Fighting a really hard battle, and then they have to somehow go out and say, look what we've achieved. And people just look at the increasing poverty, the increasing food banks, etc., etc., etc.
And then if they win, but then if they win the election, then Starmer sort of like makes out that he's key to it. He's played a blinder. So it's a really difficult situation to be in. I'm going to move on to Nasma, who is standing for the Breakthrough Party.
Hi,
Nasma,
Christine. Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Can you
Nasma.
hear
So,
me?
yeah, I can. Yeah. So, where are you standing in the country, and what's your policy? Why are you standing for these local elections?
Well, basically, I'm from Aston in Birmingham. Birmingham's a heavy Labour council since 2010. And the reason I decided to stand was I actually applied to be a Labour councillor because I was a member of the Labour Party. But having been interviewed and the interview process and the almost unspeakable pressure that they were putting on me to conform to what they wanted me to be, and then the mismanagement of everything. I mean, they're not organised at all. So I got selected, but I wasn't given an award. That no communication, and it was almost like I was just left to it. But then obviously things happening with Labour nationally as well. I just thought, you know what, they're not the right party for me. So I went looking for a party. I was politically homeless, and I found it's a small party. It's only a year old. And one thing I want to say to people is, you know, very passionate. Yes, Labour's not the Labour that we all know, but for the last 100 odd years, Labour hasn't been in the majority. We've not won. You know, it's always been Tories. For some reason, something goes wrong, and maybe now's the time. After things like the pandemic, things like Brexit, that have never happened in our lifetime. People need to start looking differently. We need to view things differently. We've got a whole lot of youth that have grown up in austerity. They've got nothing. You know, they're having to pay university fees, the wages, the way the workers are treated. All these things have actually given a negative effect, and youngsters are looking for different. They're not looking at Labour and they're not looking at Tory. They're looking for something different. So it's a small party called Breakthrough Party. We've got 10 pledges that we're democratic socialists, basically. You know, very much for the next generation, because I think this is where the parties they're not really focused on what's going to happen next. They're only focused on the now. So why I decided to stand in Birmingham in my ward is we have 2 Labour councillors that A, don't live in the ward, which isn't always an issue, but B, our area has just been run down. We have no services. We've got no youth centres. We've got no children's centres. We've got no day centres. We've got nothing in Aston. The only thing we have is huge rubbish. We have got litter, and we have got fly tipping, and we've got exempt and supported housing on the increase. So we've got a lot of HMOs that are unregulated. And what's really funny is Labour have been in power for the last 10 years. And I understand about financial constraints. I do. I'm a finance person. I understand about budgets. But if you choose your budget sensibly and you come out and show if there is an issue with like national money not coming, you need to tell the people of the community that. You need to tell us that this is the amount of money we've got and this is what we can spend it on and this is what we can't spend it on. Central government aren't giving them. They're not transparent. We don't know what the councillors are up to. And in our area, like I said, we've got high poverty, high crime, high litter. Everything negative is high and we have nothing positive. So that's why I live in Aston. I've been living here for 16 years. My children go to school here. I work here. I walk through the litter every day. That's why I thought, you know what, if we don't do something, if people don't come out and do something, we're just going to continue to suffer. And it affects health as well. You know, we've got rise of obesity, but we've got nothing, you know, like I said, we've got no health centre. And when I meant health centre, I mean, we've got no swimming baths, we've got no gyms. We've got no day centre. The old people haven't met, you know, for coffee for goodness knows how many years. We've got no children's centre. Our children's centre is about 2 miles away. And how on earth are people meant to be able to? Well,
Can I just come in? Can I just come in? I know I'm interrupting everyone. I am equally interrupting everyone. What I'd like to know is, do you think Labour's just taken everyone for granted in Birmingham? If they've been the lead council for how long, did you say?
10 years, since 2012, I
10
think.
years.
Yeah.
So it rings a bell with me where I've been in an area with a Labour council that never seems to go out of office. So I think it's great that you're standing, but I can't say anything else because I'm suspended and I'm on, you know, trying not to be thrown out too easily.
The thing I will say, Crispin, is like a couple of people said to me about the party, and I sort of said, look, yes, Breakthrough Party is not well known, but you need to look at the individual person. So somebody like me, what can I do for you? I can go and fight for you to the council, because the complacency of Labour is they've sent a leaflet through. This is how complacent they are. It's a generic, probably Birmingham-wide leaflet. It's got nothing about what they're going to do for Aston. It's got things like they're going to boost neighbourhood policing. They're going to sort exempt housing. They're going to sort the litter. But that's actually nothing. It's like a national. It's like a citywide thing. They've not even personalised it. So they're that arrogant, and they think that they're just going to win. That we haven't seen any campaigning. So I think where people are disheartened, and I'm hearing a lot about it, things like that. I think we need to change. We really do need to start doing things differently, because we've done things the same for the last 100 odd years, and what's happened? Nothing's changed.
Right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Great to hear from you. I'm going to bring on Terry Deans now, who's also standing in the local elections, but not for Labour. You're an independent, aren't you, Terry?
Yes, I am, Crispin. Yeah.
So what? I mean, tell us your experience of canvassing, for example. I mean, we're seeing on that survey that not many Labour members are going out campaigning, and the Labour enthusiasm for Labour's dropped a lot. So how do you find it when you're talking to people on the doorstep, as they say?
Yeah, look, Crispin, first of all, thank you very much for letting me speak. And I just wanted to say something before I answer that question. I wanted to say my solidarity to Pamela Fitzpatrick and for appearing in the show today. It's been great to see her, and the strength that woman has got is inspirational. And also, I wanted to just back up one or two things that she said about the Labour Party. I rejoined the Labour Party in 2015, and from day one, I recognised that it was an organisation which was abusive. It was like being a victim of an abusive relationship from day one, and the grooming that Pamela spoke about with vulnerable members of the Labour Party is a real thing. So I just wanted to say in that context that how happy and inspired and motivated I am to see Pamela back, and I just want to send my solidarity to her. Getting back to your point, as I said just a moment ago, I've only just joined the Labour Party in 2015 after a lifetime of 38, nearly 39 years of adulthood of never even having voted before in my life. So I'm probably coming from a slightly different background and approach to what I'm hearing other voices in this forum this morning speaking about voting at the local elections this year in relation to Labour and particularly. So I'm not really here to bloody anyone's nose, to be perfectly honest with you. I've had my pain along with everybody else in the Labour Party since I've been here. But I've come here to give people a bit of hope and inspiration and positivity in amongst all the gloom and doom and despair and the despondency that's going around. Like I said, I think the whole, not just the Labour Party, but the whole political arena is corrupted and is prejudiced and is discriminatory and is careerist, etc., with some exceptions, of course. So I'm standing for as an independent, and I've been in the doors yesterday. I went out. I'm quite a late entry this year to announce my candidacy as an independent. I'm in Plymouth Moorview, by the way, if anybody's interested in coming to help me.
Right.
And I've been in the doors not just the last 6.5 years of the Labour Party until they expelled me in December, but recently. And the people in this in my ward, and it's the same over the country, probably certainly the same in Plymouth. They are beaten to death by despair on what's happened, especially in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. When we start off from the Brexit shenanigans, all that toing and froing, then we've had the COVID situation. Now we've got the war in Ukraine. Now we've got the cost of living, the fuel expensive, the heating, that kind of thing. You know, it just goes on and on and on, doesn't it, Crispin? It's a people are getting battered senseless into capitulation and demoralization. And I see that. I said at the start, I'm coming from a slightly separate background from this. I come from Northern Ireland. I'm used to the imperialist system demoralizing people and dispiriting them, and I can see that in the streets. And yesterday, someone said to me in the doors, a couple of people actually, but one woman in particular went into great depth to describe to me that she thought that she was living through, and this is a woman in her late 50s, coming at 60, described the situation as the worst struggle economically, socially, mentally, depression, anxiety that she's ever faced in her lifetime, because of all these things that are going on. And not just that, but the fact that she feels despondent and despairing, that none of the political parties are in any way helping, in fact, are probably enabling that situation. So not only are they not coming to people's rescue, but they're actually doubling down on it. And so the reason why I'm going to stand as an independent is because after all these years, I've decided to stop moaning about it. I joined the Labour Party for that reason and decided to get myself active after having never voted in my life before. Some of you may know that I'm an ex-Falklands veteran as well. I want to thank John Dunn and some other people who made some great comments about that earlier on. Quite emotional to listen to him. So I understand what people are going through. So I'm going to go out there and offer people hope. They're victims of an abusive relationship, and I'm going to go out there. I'm not going to stand as, I'm not putting on, I'm a lefty or I'm a right or I'm a moderate or I'm this or I'm that or the other thing. I am going to go out there and campaign, promote myself, represent myself as a person who's going to help the people of this ward that I'm in. That's it. That's what I see my job. I'm not going around bannering, this is my policy, this is that, this is the other thing. I've got those things, but I'm here to be a servant of the people, and they're the ones who will determine how I behave as a local councillor, because I want to bring them with me, because I think it's the people who can make the difference. The young lady who just spoke a minute ago, Nasma, sorry if I got your name wrong. I think it's the people that will make the difference, and having 30%, 27, 28% of the people who vote in local elections isn't going to do it. It's not going to put those big parties under pressure. To do that, we need to unite the people together, not divide them, overcome the divide and rule syndrome. I've got my own techniques of how I engage with people on the doors, which I believe are totally different to the mainstream political culture. And I think that that's what I'm going to be focusing on, to bring people together in my ward and fight back like that way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Cheers. Now, great to have Tosh McDonald on the call. Tosh.
Yes, Crispin.
How's your COVID? Is it finished yet?
We're all clear now, all clear. Still feel knackered a lot though.
Oh, right. Yeah, same here. So,
Yes.
So you were a councillor not until not long ago, a Labour councillor, and then you resigned, as I remember, and you're not in the Labour Party anymore.
No.
I'm imagining you're not at all supportive of Labour in your in your council?
Well, in our council, we haven't got elections this year. We had all-out elections last year. But what we have got is the South Yorkshire Mayor to replace Dan Tin Soldier Jarvis. And I won't be supporting the Labour candidate there. I'm hoping there will be a socialist candidate I can support. But I think whatever local authority you're in, you should only vote for Labour candidates if they are good socialists. And I speak from experience where a minority of Labour group in Doncaster were good socialists and Labour group would outnumber me. I've represented people against the whip who have been told that they should listen to what the officers say and carry out those things. You're there as an elected member to actually hold the officers to account, in my opinion. I was in front of the whips for publicly speaking in favour of Labour Party policies because some on the Labour group didn't like it. So the only way you're going to get control is to get control with socialists. I would not recommend anybody votes for a Labour councillor who's not a socialist. I would recommend you vote for people who are socialists, be they independent or whatever party they're in. If it's the Breakthrough Party, such as that, you know, it's got to the stage where I believe it was so frustrating being in the Labour group, and you were basically dealing with Tories. And I believe the majority of people who were on there would have been Tory councillors if they lived in a Tory stronghold, and that's what's got to be broken.
Can I just come in? Because you know that thing about you saying only vote for socialists. It's very difficult to tell who a Labour councillor who's a socialist is, because often they are given the same material to put out as their leaflets and stuff that don't mention anything about socialism. They mention a lot about potholes and dog turd. So, you know, how is it possible to actually find someone who's a socialist in the Labour Party now?
Well, I think by talking to socialists in your local authority, people who are there and you know a socialist, and get them to tell you who are and who aren't. You can look at what's been happening in councils. In Doncaster Council, everything was filmed. It was there on the council website. You could watch the debates and see what's happened. Maybe getting close for these local elections, but that's the way things are going. I will not just simply vote for Labour again. I believe that Labour, if we get a good result in these local elections, I think Labour will die. I think it'll die. I don't think there'll be any coming back. I remember it was Diane Abbott telling us, I shared a platform with her one time, I forget what the thing was, telling us that in Mandelson's time, when they were saying about trying to attract all the posh people, all the businesses and stuff, what about our traditional support? What about the working people? And the reply to them from Mandelson was, well, they've got nowhere else to go. Now, last year we toured Scotland by motorbike, speaking to people in Scotland, and why Labour's dead in Scotland is understandable. But I think this SNP, I've issues with the SNP, but they are doing a good job in Scotland as far as I'm concerned. And Labour, and if they get good results, they will go further and further to the right. They've got to be held back. I mean, when we've got local Labour authorities bussing scabs in on refuge disputes, when we've got them now sacking members of staff, rehiring some on worse conditions, fire and rehire. Worse than that, we've got them where they've sacked people and they're now asking people to come and volunteer to do the work from them. We have a name for that in Labour movement, the scabs. People who come and volunteer to do somebody else's job, they're a scab, and that's it. Labour as it stands is not going to benefit working people one iota. It's not going to benefit people who are struggling now. It's the Westminster bubble and in many cases the council bubbles are too taken up by what's in it for me and just looking to perpetuate what's going. Taking everything what officers tell them to do rather than holding officers to account for the betterment of the people in the boroughs. So I would say find out who's a socialist and vote for the socialists. In our local elections last year, Nikki and I, my wife, we'd both been 2 of the 3 councillors in this ward. We looked and the 3 people standing for Labour, 2 of them we could support, 1 of them we couldn't because they weren't a socialist. Now, I believe that's the way forward. We should only vote for socialists.
Okay. Well, thank you.
One more thing.
Yeah,
it's going back to the first item about the Falklands War. I'll be very quick. My memory of that is ASLEF were having its last national dispute in 1982 when the war was on. The TUC had said it had come behind any trade union that broke the new anti-trade union laws. They had a meeting. Len Murray come out and says, you better get back to work, lads. It destroyed our dispute. We had the ships, the flotilla coming back from the Falklands with a big sign on saying, call off the rail strike or we'll call an airstrike. It actually absolutely broke the strike at that time, but it also paved the way for 2 years later the struggle against the miners, and the solidarity had been broken down, except for the rail unions who never moved a shovel full of coal throughout. Sorry about